Friends, did you know that nearly half of parents who visit Disney parks take on debt to make it happen? Yeah, I was shocked too. But in today's video that I'm going to break down how Disney vacations became too expensive for many Americans, created by CNBC, it dives deep into some hard truths about Disney and their rising costs. I had put off watching this because, let's face it, most media outlets usually get Disney wrong. And this link has been going around for a while now because over 1 million people have decided to watch this video. I finally decided to watch it, and let me tell you, this time someone nailed it. Shout out to CNBC because this video hits so close to home on what I've been feeling, and even more important, what I see you say in the comments. I felt compelled to break down my top 10 takeaways from their video. Brickey here, breaking down 10 ways that Disney is pricing out their guests. Number 10, the Disney magic tax. When did fun become so expensive?
What's happening now is Disney is an incredibly expensive and incredibly magical experience.
Disney's park prices are up more on average than in a normal year.
Lately, Disney Magic has come at a much steeper price than it did in the past. What used to be a fun family outing has transformed into a significant day of spending. Did you know that back in 2012, a one-day ticket to Disney World averaged around $89? But if you fast forward today, that same ticket now costs an American family about $150. And we're not even getting into all the extras yet. And look, I get it. Disney has added new attractions, they're constantly adding new experiences, and they've invested in technology to try to make our day at the park more magical and streamline our experiences. But I think we have to really ask ourselves, is the Disney experience really worth the extra cost for visitors today? Because for many families, if we're being honest, these rising prices could mean the difference between visiting every year or turning Disney into a once-in-a-lifetime trip. And there's a danger in Disney playing this game because it could definitely have a long-term effect on the Disney parks, as the parks become more of a luxury item that only few can afford. Number 9, is Disney worth the debt? My quick answer, no. Absolutely no.
A recent survey of 2,000 people by LendingTree found 45% of parents with children under 18 who visited a Disney park took on debt to do so. If we broaden that out to all Disney goers, almost a quarter of all visitors take on some form of debt to visit the parks.
One of the most shocking parts of this video was learning that nearly half of the parents with kids under 18 who visited Disney parks actually took on debt to do so. This was shocking and sad. Why are families willing to take on debt for a Disney trip? I mean, do they really believe that the magic of Disney is so powerful that it's worth the financial strain? And I can't help but wonder, are these parents just numb to debt at this point and that's just the cost of having a family for them? Or do they desperately want to give their kids that magical day that they think that their kids deserve? Pushing all the stress aside and just trying to focus on their children's happiness. But me personally, I don't know that I could have fun knowing that everything around me was just adding to debt. I mean, personally, I'm not a fan of debt. I mean, who is other than banks? But especially, I'm not a fan of theme park debt. I mean, if I were financing a day at Disney, I know I would have a very hard time fully enjoying myself. I would constantly be thinking about what's all this going to cost and the looming payments. I just couldn't be present if the money was taking me away. And look, I'm not judging. I'm feel empathy for those that do this. I understand it's a tough situation, but is this the new reality that American families who want a taste of the Disney magic have to go in debt? And sadly, is it a new reality where parents who want to buy great childhood memories are also willing to go in debt? That part of the video absolutely floored me and fascinated me, and it actually made me very sad, as I said. Number 8, ticket inflation.
The price hikes at parks was enormous over the last few years. Same for some of the food, just every time they could, they would either make packages smaller, higher price, whatever.
Disney, like everything else in our lives, the prices just keep going up and up and up and up. And the prices, as we all know, are going up way faster than our wages. Our country and Disney may have a huge crash up ahead when simply the people can no longer afford the products. Like, hey, corporate America, who do you think is going to buy all this shit when none of us can even work for you to buy your shit? I can't help but wonder if these constant price hikes are a sign of Disney shifting its target audience to a more wealthier crowd. Or are they simply trying to control the crowds and maintain the experience within the parks? And look, I get it. I'm there once a week. I understand it's a tricky balance. The parks are already crowded, and I get why Disney has to keep raising the prices. And in many ways, I agree with them raising the prices. Fewer people means a more enjoyable experience. When you go to Disney, your number one concern is, oh my gosh, how crowded is it going to be today? Even though it's well within their rights to raise their prices, how high is too high? I mean, are we finally getting close to Disney hitting that ceiling where a majority of guests start to say, it's just not worth it anymore? I guess the big question is, could Disney eventually price out some of the market or most families? Or is there no price too high to pay for some people? It's probably a mixture of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Number 7, from family fun to luxury travel.
The average cost of a 5-night Disney World vacation in 2024, with all the bells and whistles, comes to around $5,000. Comparatively, a high-end trip to Mexico cost around $6,000.
Disney has positioned a multi-day trip to Disney World as a form of upper middle class luxury travel and priced it accordingly.
The median annual income in the United States is $74,580, meaning a family of 4 bringing in an average salary would need to pay almost an entire month's income for a multi-day trip to Disney World.
You can always do it cheaper, but it's clear that Disney has positioned itself as a upper middle class luxury destination. But once again, I can't help but ask, is Disney losing its identity by transforming from family fun to luxury travel? And when you start to put yourself in that luxury travel category, there are some things that I don't know that Disney's quite thinking about. But first, what kind of message does this send to families across different income levels? I mean, after all, Walt Disney originally envisioned his park as a place for everyone. He saw it as a magical experience that families could share together. Now, it's starting to feel like that magic is becoming reserved for those who can afford it. And here's sort of the hidden trap in this for Disney. With luxury prices come luxury expectations. Guests who pay thousands of dollars are going to expect a premium experience. And if I'm being honest, I've noticed that some aspects of Disney these days don't quite live up to the luxury standard. A lot of cast members are great, but post-pandemic, there are a lot of cast members that aren't as friendly as they used to be, and I'll just leave it at that. And then there's the constant construction going on in the parks. I mean, I get it. Progress is great. We all want the new stuff. But the sheer number of projects and where these projects are all placed, it sometimes feels like Disney is simply prioritizing calendars and budgets over the guest experience. So, as someone who you know loves the parks, I have to say, Disney doesn't always feel like a luxury experience. And it doesn't feel like the luxury experience that they're trying to sell or put that price tag on. The more people pay, the more they will expect, and they should. And you can only overcharge folks so many times before they wise up and decide, hey, we're going to spend our money elsewhere. We spent all this money to come in here today, and the full western end of Disneyland is closed. We're done. So I think Disney is walking on a bit of a tightrope here. Number 6, Disney's revenue strategy, cost cutting or profit milking, or as I like to say, squeezing out the little guy.
Another frustration from Disney goers, over the past 10 years, the parks have been chipping away at previously free amenities. Things like the Fast Pass system, which was replaced in 2014 by Magic Bands, and then again by Genie Plus, and now Lightning Lanes, which now start at $30 per ticket per day. And those previously free Magic Bands given to resort guests are now only available to purchase. Even the free shuttle bus between the Orlando airport to Disney World resorts has been replaced with a private for-cost bus company.
When you look at all the stuff that they've they've been making a lot more expensive or just eliminating complimentary altogether, that to me seems anti-consumer. You know, that there's no benefit to the consumer.
The amount of people I've heard, what, we also have to pay another price for Rise of the Resistance? I thought we paid for this. I hear it all the time in the parks. This change and so many like it leave guests leaving Disney feeling like they got squeezed in every direction. And it is a huge turnoff. And sometimes, if I'm being honest, it just comes off as, well, kind of gross, or actually really gross. And look, people have always known that Disney is expensive. I mean, Walt was the first one to charge an admission at the gate. But ever since 2020, there's this new feeling in the parks that something, it's just not quite right. Because the way that the prices have increased and the things that you used to not have to pay for, you now have to pay for, it's obvious to a lot of folks. And as I've said, I'm in the parks every week and I'm there by myself. And I hear what guests are saying and I pay attention. And many of them that I hear feel like the costs have become unjust and they're just starting to feel like they're getting ripped off. I hear this a lot, and particularly with the Lightning Lane, when people don't understand that they don't get all the rides and they have to pay for other things. Like, it confuses and makes people mad. So one has to wonder, does the strategy of removing free amenities, which is crazy because you've already paid to park, you've already bought your tickets, you've already booked a hotel, but does adding all these extra fees hurt Disney's brand image? Are these additional costs even justifiable with the experience that they're offering? Because I hear a lot of people going, what are we going to do with our Lightning Lane? Everything's closed. So I can't help but wonder, how much can Disney cut or charge before fans start to say, enough is enough? It's a very risky game they're playing. And it makes you question if they're focusing more on profit than the magic that brings people back. I know the company is trying to make up for lost time, but I think soon they'll be trying to make up for lost guests. Number 5, something shocking to me in this video, Disney versus Universal. Who handles inflation better?
Of course, Disney isn't the only theme park to raise prices. A one-day single park ticket at Universal Studios Orlando now ranges between $119 to $179, an increase of up to $20 in just 1 year, keeping pace with Disney World's one-day ticket average of $147. And an average 3-day, 4-night trip for a family of 4 to Universal Orlando comes in at around $4,700, comparable to an even longer 5-night trip at Disney World.
So this part of the video really shocked me. I'm not a Universal guy, never been. Don't like screen-based rides, don't like thrill rides. I'm about the vibes. And you can pick up your beautiful Brickey blouse in the link below to show everybody you're about vibes over rides. But since I'd never been, I had always assumed that their parks were a lot cheaper than Disney's. But through this video, I learned Universal is facing its own set of pricing challenges. And this is where the marketplace, I think, is going to get very interesting in the next decade. Because is Universal really in the same boat as Disney when it comes to pricing? And could their strategy actually offer a better value for families as they're adding a lot of things to their parks? And while both parks have obviously increased in prices, the competition might ultimately benefit us, the visitors. If Universal is forced to adjust their costs to draw more people in, is there any way where Disney could eventually feel pressure to reevaluate their own pricing? Say once Epic Universe opens and Disney's gates aren't as packed as they used to be. But here's another way to look at all this. Will the theme park wars mean that the competition between these two theme park giants lead to more affordable experience for the families? Or will the constant demand to keep building new experiences, new attractions, new lands, new theme parks just drive up and up and up the costs across the board? Because somebody's got to pay for all this, and let's be honest, it's going to be us. So it's an interesting dynamic, and one that is definitely going to shape the future of theme park vacations. Will there be a game of chicken of who's willing to go the lowest, or the constant drive of making new stuff also drive up the prices? Universal is stepping up its game at a time when honestly, Disney has been dropping theirs. Number 4, the cost of nostalgia. Why fans keep coming back.
There's so much pressure to a degree that parents put on themselves to make this happen. And there's also kind of the keeping up with the Joneses thing as well. It is expensive just to get in the park at Disney. Then you have hotels and airfare and on down the line.
Disney World or Disneyland, depending upon your location, is basically a tax on being a parent.
There's a reason Disney is often called the happiest place on earth. It was designed and manufactured to feel that way. And for so many of us, it's not just a theme park, but it's a nostalgic experience. And with many, it's filled with childhood memories, with your parents, your grandparents, aunt and uncles, often people that just aren't here anymore. And that nostalgia is such a powerful force. And you see their blue force ghosts when you're inside the park. And look, Disney knows this. They market the park on nostalgia. But I do have to wonder, is nostalgia enough to keep fans coming back despite the rising costs? Let's break this down. One of my favorite points in this video, because I'm not a parent, but they talk about the pressure parents feel to give their kids that magical Disney childhood experience to the extent that it almost feels like a tax on being a parent. And I love that line, and there's so many good ones in this video. So as we all know, Disney leverages the emotional attachment to justify its price increases. But is there a point where the nostalgia runs out? Because think about it. After a handful of overpriced, overcrowded trips where you felt like everything was an upcharge and you didn't honestly have a great time, do these new memories start to replace the magic of the good old days? Because that is something that is very easy to do as a human. And I'm not going to deny nostalgia is a powerful drug, but it can be replaced by bad memories. So the question is this: how many disappointing trips will it take before fans start to question, is it really worth it? Is it really what it used to be? Is it the same? Is it still Walt's Disneyland? And I do believe at some point that emotional pull might be strong enough to overcome the sense of being overcharged. Number 3, is Disney Magic still accessible to all?
That was a quote from Walt that says, "To all who come to this happy place, welcome." And we focus our energy on the all.
But is it really? Or is a trip to Disney just getting too expensive for inflation-weary American families?
And it's a tough question. Can Disney still claim to be a magical experience if it's pricing out so many people? And one of the things I enjoyed about this video was how well-rounded it was. I mean, seeing Jake from Bright Sun Films in there was perfect because he's not only a Disney YouTuber, but he's a Disney YouTuber that lives in Ontario, Canada. So he comes to the park with the out-of-town perspective and spends that out-of-town money. But another character that we saw in this video to make it well-rounded was, to Disney's defense, I appreciated hearing Disneyland Park President Ken Potrock, or as I like to call him, Kenny P. Rocks. What a guy. What an absolute legend. And he does address this issue of pricing out people. Ken went out of his way to point out that their lowest price park ticket has stayed the same for nearly 5 years, although it's not available every single day due to their dynamic pricing. And they do offer lots of discounted tickets, but the discounted tickets normally show up softer times of the year and also moments in the year when we locals know there's a lot of construction going on, so you're paying less because you're getting less. And he even went out of his way to mention that there are sometimes $50 tickets for kids. So it is clear they're trying to offer different options for different budgets. But you know there was a big but coming. Even though maybe you grab one of these different discounts, look at all the other outrageous upcharges. Like, parking doesn't go down on those days. It's still $35 a car. So there's so many upcharges that the affordable day at Disney can still turn into a financial headache, especially if you thought it was going to be cheap because your ticket didn't cost that much. So it does make me wonder again, how does the value conscious customer navigate the rest of the best day ever when all the other prices don't go down because you saved $55 at the gate? So with so many added expenses, is Disney really accessible to all, even though sometimes it's a little bit cheaper to get in? And number 2, catering to the upper middle class. Is this a sustainable move?
If you have enough money to afford to come to the Walt Disney parks every year, you also have a lot of other choices, so you're probably not coming every year.
And that's the problem for Disney. Catering to wealthier travelers means catering to people that often have more options when it comes to where they travel, meaning Disney parks are now competing with luxury vacation spots, places like Vail or the Bahamas, where a high-end vacation costs just a couple thousand more.
Will wealthier travelers keep coming back year after year, like the hardworking families that have been the backbone of the Disney parks since Walt Disney opened it in 1955? I mean, realistically, there are families who might not be able to afford a trip to Europe, but can hop in the car, load up the kids, drive down to World Showcase at Epcot once or twice a year. So Disney could be risking a lot here by pricing out this family. And by focusing on the upper middle class, they might be losing the dedicated fans, the ones that create the multi-generational fandom that makes the Disney parks so special. Because a wealthier level of people might go in once and do it and go, all right, we did that. Let's do something different next year because we rich. So you have to think long term, is this shift towards a luxury travel a smart move? Or could it backfire down the road? Could Disney be pricing out fans who would keep coming back and sharing the magic with their children and their grandchildren? It's a gamble, and one that could have a long-term consequence for Disney's ability to create lifelong fans. And right now, they have an abundance of lifelong fans, so they might not actually be thinking about like, oh, what happens when this sector starts to go away? Number one, will rising costs hurt Disney's legacy?
Disney is playing an extremely long game, a generational long game, with the end goal of making lifelong Disney fans. And if families are priced out, that means less trips, less magic, and less lifetime superfans. Disney already announced it is raising ticket prices again by $5 to $10 for some tickets in 2025.
I hope you're enjoying the countdown. I have the video linked. I would encourage you to go watch it. I see a lot of these videos that normally I'm like, these numbers are all wrong. This one feels pretty accurate and had a lot of great talking points in it, which sparked this video. And if you're enjoying today's video, how about you do me and do you a favor and subscribe to Hey Brickey. It's the easiest and freest way to make sure I keep showing up 3 times a week. Make sure you subscribe to Hey Brickey. I appreciate it. This was a point that I hadn't really considered until now. It took me back to my trip to Disneyland Paris. Look, it's a stunning park. Arguably the most beautiful Disney park I'd ever seen. TB knocked it out, proving that he is the GOAT. But there was something missing on my day at Disneyland Paris. And then at the end of the day, it hit me. I figured out what it was when I was waiting for the fireworks. The park was missing the Disney magic. And that's when it hit me. It's the fandom that makes Disneyland feel so special. Because it's been crafted and loved with 6 generations of families visiting since 1955 that have turned it into something truly magical. And if Disney keeps pricing out those families, that means fewer trips, less magic, and eventually fewer lifetime superfans. So one has to wonder, how do rising costs threaten Disney's legacy as the ultimate family destination? Are they sacrificing long-term brand loyalty for short-term revenue gains? I think they are. Because what I learned when I went to Paris, a Disney park without the magic is just that. It's a park. Is there a breaking point where even the most loyal fans stop returning? And that's the real risk here. Because without those fans, Disney could lose the very thing that makes the parks feel so special. The citizens of Disneyland. If you'd like to see how I think Disney is going to defend themselves in the theme park wars over the next decade, make sure you watch this video right here.